Andrew Bone. You know what we do every Tuesday night? We talk recruiting with Andrew Bone. Thank you very much for watching tonight. Please let us know where you're coming from in the comment box. We always like to see where you guys are coming from. We appreciate all the support right here on BamaInsider.com. How you doing, Bone?
I'm good, man. How are you? It's a good Tuesday night, isn't it?
Yeah, every Tuesday we talk recruiting. We got tons of people already on watching the show. So thank you so much for being out there and watching the show. And for being with us. We appreciate it. And a couple things before we get started that I wanted to go over. I just dropped some major nuggets on BamaInsider.com. Nuggets you can't get anywhere else. So definitely go over and get your free 30 days. I mean, these nuggets you can't get anywhere else. Big time nuggets right now at BamaInsider.com. Also wanted to give a shout out to our Super Chat Hall of Honor. Everyone, on this board has certainly helped our channel grow. And thank you so much. So we got Randall Williams closer to the Club 100 and right now leading in the box seat. So thank you so much. Jackie White certainly moving up with her contribution last night. So thank you to everyone in the Super Chat Hall of Honor. Lastly, we got the BamaInsider.com loyalty program. If you want to join the loyalty program, just click join at the bottom of this video. To start off the show, I was talking with Bone earlier, and everybody is asking about the latest on Jason Marshall. And Bone, I'm sure we're going to get that question as we move forward. What's the latest on Marshall? And I'm, you can answer a couple questions tonight on him, but what's kind of the latest and where do things stand with Jason Marshall?
Yeah, he was a hot topic over the weekend. Everybody was, from different websites, on Rivals and throughout other networks, started throwing in all these predictions for Miami. And it almost seemed like a commitment to Miami was happening on Saturday, and nothing happened. And we saw a lot of Miami coaches, tweeting some positive things. It kind of seemed like something big was about to go down, but nothing happened. I think there was a lot of momentum for Miami, and there still may be. I mean, we're starting to hear a lot of chatter that Miami certainly skyrocketed up his list. Everybody's kind of thought it's an Alabama-Florida battle forever. I mean, we felt like that was the case, especially when he put out his top three back in May: Alabama, Clemson, Florida. Everybody said this is an Alabama-Florida battle, 100%. But then all of a sudden, a couple months later, removed Clemson from that list and put out a top five, and had Florida, Miami, Alabama, LSU, and Oregon in that top five. But I think he stays close to home. But as of right now, I think it's a Miami-Alabama battle. I think Florida's still, in it, but I think things have kind of shifted. If he decides to stay in state, I think he goes to Miami. If he decides to go out of state, I think it's Alabama. But I think it's a big tug of war right now. There's some speculation that maybe he commits this week. He's got a couple teammates that are going to be making decisions over the course of the next week. Corey Collier is a five-star cornerback. His teammate plans on committing in the next week. I think it's next Monday. Leonard Taylor, defensive lineman, also from his high school, is committing on Thursday. And there's a lot of talk that that Leonard Taylor leaning towards Miami, so that could be a big help for the Hurricanes there. So we'll see what happens. We're continuing to monitor it. Alabama's still pressing hard to get Jason Marshall on board. They really want him. He's a top priority recruit for them. And there's been some talk that maybe he was going to commit to Miami on Saturday, but maybe Alabama talked him out of it, and he decided to wait a little bit longer. So we'll see what happens over the course of the next week, see if he decides to make a commitment, on the same day as possibly one of his teammates. But I think it keeps going back and forth between Alabama and Miami at this point. And I think Florida's starting to trail a little bit behind those two.
Great update, Bone. And also, we got – check this out, Bone.
Oh, wow. I guess we're going to tonight.
Tony Hill has skyrocketed into the Club 100, and we appreciate it, Tony. Thank you so much, and we'll get right to that question before we even move forward. So where does Alabama sit on some of the top prospects, and where do you think Bama finishes in this recruiting class? Tony, thank you. You just upgraded to the Club 100. Bone, take it away.
Yeah, we can sit here for an hour now and talk, just answer answer all of Tony's questions. um, well, Alabama currently sitting with a tremendous recruiting class, currently with 16 commitments. I think they're closing in fast on potentially 17 and 18. Next week, Monkel Goodwine and Kyrie Jackson. Kyrie Jackson, Alabama's top junior college defensive target, probably top junior college overall target, Monkel Goodwine, one of the top defensive ends in the country out of Maryland. As of right now, I have both of those guys predicted to Alabama. We'll see if anything changes over the course of the next week, but I think on August the 15th, I see both of those guys committing to the Crimson Tide. Now, overall, I mean, if you want to talk about some of the big names, some of the big 5-star guys, that Alabama is going after, I guess first off, you have to look on the defensive side of the ball. Start at the defensive end position. You got guys like Corey Foreman, JT Tuimoloau, Tunmise Adeleye. Those are 3 5-star defensive ends that Alabama is going very hard after right now. Tunmise Adeleye still committed to Ohio State, but I think Alabama's got a chance if they can get him on campus for an official visit this fall. JT Tuimoloau, I certainly think that Alabama has climbed up the board for him. I'm not saying that Alabama's his leader at this point, but I do think Alabama at least has a fighting chance for him. And Corey Foreman, in my opinion, still, I think he ends up staying on the West Coast. I don't really see any change there. Top overall targets, so, defensive back wise, Alabama has 3 defensive back commitments. I still think they're going to add at least 3 more defensive backs. We just talked about Jason Marshall a few minutes ago. Kool-Aid, JaQuincy McKinstry, the number 1 player in the state of Alabama from Pinson Valley, still uncommitted, has the top 3 of Alabama, LSU, and Auburn. I really think it's coming down to an in-state battle. I know that there was a lot of chatter, a lot of talk that LSU was the favorite, that they were going to end up getting him. And, hey, guess what? They still might. I think they're still very much in play. But, just from the recent interviews with him, on Rivals, I just see this turning into an Alabama-Auburn recruiting battle. And it's very, very tight right now. And, I know we've all been predicting Alabama for Kool-Aid forever. I still think Alabama's in great shape with him, but I also think Auburn's very much in the hunt. And if he committed to Auburn, would not surprise me one bit. So we'll see what happens over the course of the next, couple weeks. See if Alabama can get a couple more guys. Now, you got to think there's a lot of guys that Alabama is recruiting right now who plan on waiting it out, who plan on stretching this thing out. Now that, if they don't make a decision in August, we may not see any decisions until after the football season. Kids just start focusing in on their senior season. So we'll see who all commits this month. And, before we get into September. Now, Robbie Outz is another guy that we're, continuing to follow. Tight end out of South Carolina. It's very high on Alabama. Has Alabama, Virginia Tech in his top 2 right now. He's told Tony Tsoukalas the other day, said that, don't expect the decision right now. The earliest he could decide is going to be in September. So I know a lot of people have been predicting that Robbie Outz is going to be next to jump on board. We've even said it before, but he says he's going to wait at least until September to make a decision. So some of the guys that, as I mentioned earlier, to White's this month, Monkel Goodwine, Kyrie Jackson, both announcing their commitments on August the 15th. I'd also watch out for Kool-Aid, JaQuincy McKinstry. You never know when he may pull the trigger. He's always talked about committing before his senior season begins, so we'll see if that potentially happens.
All right, Bone, I have JaQuincy McKinstry's graphic up there right now, and thank you so much, Tony Hill. We certainly appreciate it. We support the contribution big time. We moved right into the Club 100. We also got to give props to our buddy Paul Robinson, also in the moving up in the rankings as well. Every time we have a show, Paul Robinson definitely in there. And then we got to give some big ups to, I think there was one more on there. I think that was Bomb Edwards also in there. So
thanks, Bombs. Appreciate it, man.
Bomb Edwards, thank you so much. We appreciate it. As we continue to talk recruiting with Andrew Bone, and you can also listen to this your next day at work right here on a podcast. Just search BamaInsider.com wherever you get your podcast. But I have a couple other questions that I wanted to go over with you before we really dive into our recruiting show and take questions from some of our fans right here. So hold those questions, and you can definitely post those in a minute, and we'll get right to you. Bone, this class, I was going through and collecting some information, and I found this interesting. Rivals.com right now has Alabama number 2 when sorted by star ranking average. So you have Ohio State, and this is sorted by star ranking average. And we've talked about the recruiting rankings before. Can you talk a little bit more about the Rivals rankings? They haven't been updated yet, but as you can see, Alabama right now with 3.8 star ranking, trailing Ohio State by just a few points. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, well, I think Alabama certainly has a strong chance to jump Ohio State when the next rankings come out, and I believe the Rivals team has started the evaluations and the rankings meeting and the meetings this week and trying to figure it out. And I think we're going to see some a big overall update in the next week or two by Rivals. I think it's probably a little bit past due. They've been waiting. I know other sites have updated their rankings kind of throughout the year. Rivals just continue to wait. Well, now they're finally going to be updating the rankings. It's going to come out, and like I said, in the next couple of weeks. So, really looking forward to seeing, which Alabama commitments, which Alabama targets make a big jump in the rankings. I think you can certainly imagine, there's going to be some big movement, especially with guys like J.C. Latham, who's been at number 75, and I think he's number 75 overall in the Rivals 100. Everybody says, well, how's he number 75? He's a 5-star recruit. Well, he's been number 75 since, I think since January. So it's not like, anything's happened since then. There hasn't been any time to evaluate kids, but I think the Rivals team's kind of ready to move him up. So we'll see how high he ends up jumping, but I think he's going to see a significant jump. Dallas Turner's another guy. Deontay Lawson's another guy. Christian Leary. Another kid who's currently rated as a 3-star that I think is going to make a big jump is DeVonta Smith out of Cincinnati. I think he's got a chance to really make a strong jump. I don't know if he's going to get into the Rivals 100, but I think he's going to move pretty high. And, maybe they'll evaluate him a little bit more this upcoming season before they decide to push him into that Rivals 100. But a very elite player there. Excited to see what the rankings update looks like here in a couple weeks.
Hey, Bone, before we take everyone's questions, you are coming out with a book that everybody can pre-order right now on Amazon. I'm going to bring up that graphic. Can you tell everybody about your book, which is coming out, The Road to Bama, incredible twists and improbable turns along the Alabama Crimson Tide recruiting trail. Talk just a minute or so about your book, where they can get it, and what they can expect when they do order your book. And I'll put the link in the description box.
Yeah, really excited about this book. Started it, last September. So it was about a year-long project. I was very fortunate. Triumph Books, based out of Chicago, reached out to me about writing this particular book, and was very excited about doing it. Wasn't really sure how I was going to contact, different Alabama greats, throughout the years. I kind of had my list of, these are the best Alabama players of all time. I'm going to work off of this list, but I'm probably going to get all my guys are probably going to be all on the next list. Maybe the guys after the top 50 players in Alabama history. But I was very fortunate to speak to, all the guys who are in the book. I feel like are some of the top overall players that have ever worn the crimson and white jersey. Very excited about the book coming out. I was very fortunate to have Jay Barker write the foreword for me. Jay's been a good friend for several years, so I was very happy and to get him on board. And just talking to so many different people from so many different eras. I mean, I talked to I'm not going to name every single person who's in the book because I want people to buy it and be intrigued by who's in it. But the very first guy that I have in my chapter 1 is Leroy Jardin, who was in the 1959 Alabama recruiting class. So that was really awesome to speak to him and interview him about his life and his journey. And then the last chapter is on Tua. So it was really, pretty much all the top players in between those guys. So it was really exciting. And I'm really looking forward to getting the book out there, when it goes on sale officially. But you can pre-order it. You can pre-order it on Amazon, pre-order it on Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. It's on all those sites. So really looking forward to getting that book out there for people. And read. I think it's going to be a fun read because it's 18 chapters. Each chapter I've interviewed the players, former high school coaches, parents, opposing coaches from different schools who missed out on getting these guys. So it was a lot of fun, talking to everybody throughout the year and writing this book. The writing part was certainly the most challenging part of it. But speaking to the guys and speaking of heroes of mine throughout my entire life, was certainly an honor for me. And speaking of people who are even heroes of my parents, my parents both went to the University of Alabama, and so I knew everything about Crimson Tide lore and everything, about the best players of all time. And, just speaking to those people, from the 1960s and 70s, was an awesome experience.
Definitely. So I'll put the link in the description box right here, so you can definitely go and get your copy. And we actually had Alex ask about a signed copy, so we'll definitely make sure that Bone gets a signed copy to you. That I think that'd be awesome. I have a quick update before. Get your recruiting questions ready right now. Start to post those, and then we'll dive in, and I'll post those to Andrew Bone. But before we get started, quick nugget on that you can get only at BamaInsider.com. I'm going to drop that right now. So I have heard some fantastic news about Trace Anderson. Real deal, having a monster August camp. And these guys will really start to get going, as you saw on August 17th. But from what I hear right now, Trace Anderson is absolutely phenomenal, catches the football very well out of the backfield. Source tells me, wouldn't be surprised if he's a number 2 running back as we get closer to the season. I mean, and that's a talented running back pool. So you can go get more nuggets right now at BamaInsider.com. Free promo code is simply Roll Tide at checkout. Here's the updated look at the Super Chat Hall of Honor. We got Tony Hill on there with $100. He's the first person to be in the Club 100. Thank you so much tonight. And then we got Baum Edwards, who's moving up in the field level. So thank you so much to all the contributions. We'll take your recruiting questions right now on BamaInsider.com. Post those in the recruiting box, and then I will move that over to Andrew Bone. We got our first one coming in from Paul Robinson. Bone, if Robbie Outz goes to Virginia Tech for some reason, what would Alabama do at tight end?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a guy in Mississippi named Jalen Milroe from Olive Branch High School, Mississippi. He has Alabama in his top 5. I think Alabama, they really press hard for him. I think they would have a pretty decent chance at getting him on board. I still think Robbie Outz is probably going to be the guy that joins Alabama's class. Now, early on in the recruiting process, I kind of thought, with Alabama kind of missing out on a few tight ends, key tight end targets in last year's class, I felt like this was going to be a year where they went after 2 tight ends. Well, not really a lot of elite tight ends out there in this recruiting class in Alabama. I think Alabama kind of sees that. I think there's more guys in next year's recruiting class. So try to get 1 this year, go after 2 next year. I still think Robbie Outz is going to be the guy, but Jalen Milroe, another guy that they really like a lot, and we'll see if Alabama can possibly get one of these tight ends who's committed to elsewhere to return to campus. Maybe somebody like Elijah Arroyo, who's committed to Miami, or potentially Jermaine Terry, who's committed to Cal. That's a guy that Alabama's liked for a very long time, but made an early commitment to Cal. I don't see him flipping from Cal, even though people may say, well, it's Cal versus Alabama. Well, he's a California kid, so he really likes the Bears, and I think he ends up sticking with his commitment to Cal right now. But we'll see if Alabama can get one of these guys on campus, but maybe they won't need to if they can get Robbie Outz on board. Maybe within the next month or so.
All right, good question, Paul, and thank you so much for the contribution earlier. This one's coming in from Corey Watts. I hear that we are behind on Xavian Sorey. What's the word on him?
I wouldn't say Alabama's behind on him. I don't think he has an overall leader at this point. He's got an all-SEC top 5, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Auburn, and Florida. I do think that Alabama, Georgia, I think it's going to be an Alabama-Georgia recruiting battle for him all the way until the end. LSU clearly in it. Auburn's clearly in it. Florida's definitely in it as well. So I think it's a big time, fight until the finish line. I don't see a commitment happening anytime soon. I think he's going to wait it out. I think he wants to take some official visits, take some visits this fall if he can, and then make that decision. But just recently transferred to IMG Academy, so he's now teammates with a couple Alabama commitments, J.C. Latham and Ja'Cory Brooks. You rest assured that both of those guys are going to be recruiting him until he announces that decision.
All right, our next one's coming in from Jackson. What's up, Jackson? Thank you so much for the question tonight. Is it a positive sign that Mims pushed back his commitment?
I don't know if I would say it's a positive sign, but I wouldn't say it's a negative sign. I think it's good for him because he doesn't know what he wants to do. I think that, if he would have, continued to have that commitment on August the 15th, then he knows what he wants to do, but he clearly does not know where he wants to go just yet. So I think that's, a good sign because everyone thinks he's been favoring Georgia, and he may be favoring Georgia, but it also gives other schools an opportunity to potentially get him on campus. Now, he's visited Georgia and Tennessee 2 out of the last 3 weekends. Some of these other schools haven't been able to get him on campus, so I think he wants to give everybody a fair chance. I know he wants to get back down to Tuscaloosa. We'll see if he potentially gets over to Auburn and Florida State as well. But getting him back on campus, I think, is going to be big for Alabama.
All right, we got one, and this is going to be a tough one, Bone. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Jeremiah is asking for a Kool-Aid prediction.
I played the fifth. I have said from day one, I think I put in a prediction on Kool-Aid back last summer for Alabama, and until he commits elsewhere, I don't know if I'm going to change that prediction. I think with Alabama's track record developing defensive backs, the proximity to home, the amount of times he's been to Tuscaloosa, the relationship with Carl Scott, Nick Saban, coaching staff, I think that's going to weigh heavy, but would not rule out Auburn. I mean, I think Auburn has certainly surged kind of in the race for him over the last few months. They've done a really good job recruiting him, so it's close. It's very close. It's not a very, very solid prediction, but it's a prediction right now that I'm just saying that I think he goes to Alabama, but maybe he goes elsewhere.
All right. Please post your comments right now in the comment box for Andrew Bone, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. This one's coming from Terry, and I'm unfamiliar with this, so help me out on this, Bone. So is a smoke reel for Sapp to flip from Florida to Bama? Who's Sapp? I haven't heard you talk about him before.
Yeah, so Tyreak Sapp is a 6.0 on Rivals, defensive end, pretty much a 5-star recruit. Defensive end from St. Thomas Aquinas, teammates with Dallas Turner, Alabama commitment. Alabama's certainly pushing for him. They like him a lot. He's another one of these, really, really talented defensive end targets that Alabama's going after that, they potentially have a good chance to get. Now, he has a committable offer, no doubt about it. There's a lot of defensive ends, it seems like, that have committable offers from Alabama right now. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, because let's say, if they get one more defensive end on board, or 2 more defensive ends on board, if they can get Monkel Goodwine on August the 15th, possibly get one more guy, it's going to be very, very tight, in terms of, the overall numbers. How many more can they get, because you still potentially have, Corey Foreman out there, JT Tuimoloau, Tyreak Sapp, Tunmise Adeleye. Which one of those guys do you turn down? It's hard to turn one of those elite players down. Shamar Turner, another guy that is, right at the top of the recruiting board for Alabama, somebody they really want pretty bad in this class. So we'll see what happens after Monkel Goodwine announces his decision on August the 15th. If he commits to Alabama, we'll see if that potentially puts a little bit of pressure on maybe another defensive end target announcing a decision.
All right, next question coming in from Frederick, and he's asking for an update on Brian Thomas. I know you touched on Thomas a little bit earlier in the show, but if you could provide Frederick with a direct update.
Yeah, nothing new. There was a lot of talk last month that he was going to commit, and there was a lot of talk that it was going to be to Alabama. I think it's kind of gone back and forth the last several months between Alabama and LSU. Probably last summer all the way up until about, it seemed like June, it was all Alabama. And then we started hearing all this talk, LSU. People started flipping their predictions, Alabama to LSU, just because that talk was so heavy. And then all of a sudden we started hearing Alabama again. So I think it's just a seesaw battle right now. I don't see a commitment happening anytime soon. I think he's going to wait it out. But it's something to keep an eye on. Malcolm Johnson, one of the fastest receivers in the country, out of Virginia, certainly another guy that Alabama really likes. They would certainly take a commitment from him if he called up Nick Saban tonight and said, hey, I want to commit. I don't think Alabama's going to take any more than 4 wide receivers, and they currently have 3 wide receiver commitments. So I think it comes down to who jumps on board first. Is it going to be Brian Thomas? Is it going to be Malcolm Johnson? We'll see what happens. But Malcolm Johnson could potentially commit sooner rather than later. I think he could potentially take Brian Thomas's spot if Brian Thomas doesn't make a decision, potentially within the next month or so.
All right, got another question coming in for Terry. Appreciate it, Terry. Thank you so much for the question. What's the latest on Terrion Arnold? Is it between Alabama? Is it between Florida?
I think, I would say it's between those two schools, but, I also think there's other schools that are heavily involved that he wants to visit. Tennessee, Auburn, Georgia. Those are some schools that he wants to take visits to and kind of enjoy the process. We kind of thought that he was going to make a decision before his senior season. Thought maybe this spring or early in the summer, but because of COVID, he decided to continue to push things back. He picked up a lot of basketball offers throughout the spring and early part of the summer. So that's kind of made him, pause everything, not make a decision. So looks like he's going to take some official visits before making that commitment. I still think Alabama is extremely high on his list. Going to be very interesting to see what happens in the defensive backfield, especially if Alabama gets Kyrie Jackson on board next week. That would be 4 defensive back commitments. Still have Kool-Aid out there. Terrion, Arnold, Jason Marshall, all those guys are very high on Alabama's wish list.
All right, good stuff, Bone. Alex is asking about Jeremiah Williams and Xavian Sorey, and if those guys are competing for the last linebacker spot at Alabama.
With Alabama right now currently having 4 linebacker commitments, I think the commitments last month from Kendrick Blackshire and Dallas Turner, I think that kind of put things on hold for most of the other linebacker targets. Now, Xavian Sorey still a top priority. I think Alabama would hold a spot for him all the way until signing day. I think that's how high regard they have for him, just as an overall athlete. I mean, this kid can do just about anything on the field, and I think he would have a spot until signing day. Jeremiah Williams, probably more of an Auburn-Florida battle this time. I think the linebacker numbers at Alabama just don't really go in his favor at this time. I think Alabama's pretty much content on the linebackers that they have, but they would certainly take Xavian Sorey if he wanted to commit.
All right, Bombs is asking, and appreciate it, Bombs, for the super chat earlier. Thank you so much. You're definitely a big contributor to the show. After one more offensive line, quarterback, tight end, are we done on the offensive side, or are there more needs? For example, Brian Thomas. I know you touched on him earlier, but if you can get with Bombs.
Yeah, I do think Alabama ends up taking one more offensive lineman. I think with them right now, they're probably going to wait to see what happens with Demarius Mims. William Griffin Parker is going to announce his decision on September the 4th. We'll see if he continues to hold that press conference or whatever he decides to do. And not sure if that's going to continue to be on the same date, but we'll see what happens. Quarterback wise, Alabama wants a quarterback. And I've said that time and time again. They definitely want to get a quarterback in this class. Trying to flip a couple guys right now, and Jalen Milroe and Luke Altmaier. Those are guys that they're probably going to wait on, see what happens, see if they can get those guys on campus for an official visit this fall. Ty Keys out of Mississippi as well is another kid that I think is a guy that Alabama really likes a lot. But probably just being patient with him right now, just wanting to kind of see what happens with Milroe and Altmaier, and then tight end, as I said before, I think Alabama ends up getting Robbie Outz, but other positions, running back wise, Alabama's still trying to swing for the fences and see what they can do with Kamar Wheaton. But this is a year where they potentially may not take a running back if they don't get Kamar Wheaton on board. Wide receiver wise, I definitely do think Alabama takes one more wide receiver. And as I said earlier, Malcolm Johnson or Brian Thomas, whoever commits first.
Hey, Jay Lee, we didn't overlook your question, buddy. That was on Jason Marshall. So at the beginning of the show, Bone goes pretty in depth on Jason Marshall. So rewatch the show and Bone will talk, and you can catch what Bone said about Jason Marshall. So we definitely didn't overlook your question. So no hard feelings. Just we started off the show with him. So Paul Robinson, thank you so much for the super chat earlier in the show. Is August 15th going to be good, or is it going to be very good for Alabama?
Yeah, I think it'll be good. I guess you could say very good. I as of right now, I am predicting both Kyrie Jackson and Monkel Goodwine to Alabama. So that would be a very, very good day for the Crimson Tide if they're able to get both of those guys on board. We'll see what happens. Goodwine, I feel a little bit more confident about in my prediction with him. Kyrie Jackson, I think if he decides to surprise everyone, that would not be a major shock to me. But I do think that he ends up going to Alabama. I think he's got a great relationship with the coaching staff. Freddie Roach has been recruiting him. Carl Scott's doing a great job. Nick Saban. I think with East Mississippi, the connection they have with Alabama, sending a lot of players to Tuscaloosa, I think that helps. So we'll see. But I do think that both of those guys end up committing to Alabama on August the 15th.
Hey, will you guys please just real quickly hit the thumbs up button? That really helps show. I know everybody can't super chat, or anybody, not everybody can be a loyalty club member, but just a simple thumbs up that certainly helps our channel grow. So if you still want to contribute, just a thumbs up, and to be able to subscribe, that certainly helps. So please take a minute and just hit the thumbs up button. Really means a lot to the BamaInsider.com staff. As we continue, Jacob is asking latest on Brian Thomas. We already talked about Brian Thomas, but can you provide some information on Tim Keenan? There was a recent article on Bama Insider that kind of talked about him. So can you talk about Tim Keenan, please, Bone?
Yeah, no, Tim Keenan is, an in-state defensive lineman from Ramsey High School in Birmingham, for those that don't know, has been recruited by Alabama for a very long time. I think he received his offer from Alabama when he was just a sophomore. But with Alabama's defensive line numbers right now, Damon Payne on board, and Quinn Barnes on board. Those are two interior defensive line commitments. I don't think that the numbers really kind of work out. I don't see him in this class at this time. Now, if he decides that he wants to make a decision, relatively soon, we'll keep an eye on that because, there's just so many defensive linemen that are still out there. Mason Smith, the number one defensive tackle in the country, according to Rivals, out of Louisiana, still recruiting him very hard, and he's not going to be making a decision anytime soon. He's a kid that grew up an Alabama fan, even though he lives in Louisiana and everybody's predicting him to LSU. Grew up an Alabama fan, and Alabama's in his top 4. So, I don't think Alabama's going to take another interior defensive lineman until they know, a final decision on Mason Smith.
We got one more coming in from Anthony Reed, and I was looking at the comment box. If I might have skipped your question, we might have already talked about it, so don't take offense. So when you rewatch the show, I'll make sure and put all the timestamps within the show underneath the video, so you can go back and watch the update from Bone about the particular prospect that you're interested in. We got another super chat that just came in, so thank you. We appreciate it. We'll definitely highlight you in just a second. Next update, Bone, is on from Anthony Reed. He's asking, there was a Clemson article that states Monkel Goodwine is already a silent commit to the Tigers. Have you heard this?
No. I do not believe that. Now, has he potentially already made his commitment? Yeah, I believe I believe that could be the case, but did he make a silent commitment to Clemson? And why would a Clemson article, or why would a Clemson reporter come out and say that that Monkel Goodwine is silently committed to Clemson? That's kind of Bush League and something you just don't do. So I don't know where that's coming from, but I wouldn't trust that article one bit.
All right, here we go. How about this one from Ronnie? What's the latest on Tunmise Adeleye?
Nothing new. It's still kind of the same thing with Tunmise. Everybody's just kind of waiting to see if he ends up taking visits. I mean, talking to people at Ohio State, I mean, they feel like he's, not necessarily very solid with his commitment, but, still pretty firm, but he's going to take some visits. He's going to visit potentially Alabama, Ohio State, Texas A&M, to another school to kind of watch out for with him. Originally from Texas, just moved to IMG Academy last year. So, after this last season, he moved to IMG Academy. So, definitely got a lot of connections in the state of Texas. So, I definitely see him taking official visits this fall, and I expect him to visit Alabama. But, will he reopen things before, that happens, like most Clemson or all Clemson commitments have to do? I don't think so. I think he'll still stay committed to Ohio State, take some visits, and then, potentially announce that final decision.
All right, we got another super chat.
Right.
Hey, Luciano, we see you. Thank you so much. I love it. Thank you so much for the support. Definitely get you up on that super chat Hall of Honor as soon as we can. So thank you so much to everybody that has contributed to tonight's show. Big following tonight. Be sure and hit the thumbs up button. We'll ask us a couple more questions going through. And again, if I skipped over your question, it's probably because we already talked about that particular commitment. Or prospect rather. Bone talked about this earlier, but I'll ask you again, Bone. Alex is asking, do you believe DeVonta Smith will move up in the rankings? You said he would. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the type of prospect that you feel DeVonta Smith is? Now, remember, Alabama has DeVonta Smith, Smitty, on their roster already, one of the best wide receivers in college football, but also gained a commitment from DeVonta Smith that Andrew's going to talk about right now.
Yeah, DeVonta Smith, Smitty, the second. I definitely think that Alabama's got an elite cornerback, defensive back prospect in DeVonta. I think he's going to make a major move in the Rivals rankings up there. I've talked to, national, regional guys about him, and everybody's kind of agreed they had him ranked way too low. Everybody was kind of just being hesitant on him because they wanted to see him a little bit more during the spring at some spring camps. I think they saw him early on during his junior season, really liked him, but just wanted to see him in person one more time before he got that big, rankings update. So rankings jump, excuse me. I do think he makes a big move. Like I said earlier, I don't know if he's going to make it all the way into the Rivals 100, but I think he's got a good chance to make a significant jump and potentially move into the Rivals 100 this upcoming season.
All right, next question coming in from Jacob. What's up, Jacob? Thank you so much for the question. Any news on Jardin Gilbert?
Yeah, Jardin Gilbert actually just put out his top 5 over the weekend. I think it was on Sunday. Alabama, Texas A&M. Who else was it? Alabama, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Southern University, and there was one more SEC school in there. I can't place it. Sorry, guys. There was one other SEC school, Mississippi State. There we go.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, I mean, those are schools that he really likes a lot. I mean, it's great for him, giving some love to Southern University, historically black college. That's great. I don't see him going there. I think he ends up probably playing in the SEC. I think it might be an Alabama, Mississippi State battle. Yeah, you just never know how it may go. Texas A&M also very high on his list. It's all going to depend on these defensive back numbers. Alabama's going to be watching closely next week with Kyrie Jackson, who's going to be announcing on the 15th. Does that potentially eliminate a spot for somebody? Because you got to wait on Cooley. You got to wait on Terrion Arnold, Jason Marshall. Those are some guys that, very high on Alabama's DB board. Sage Ryan, another guy out of Louisiana. But, Jardin Gilbert, even though he's a 3-star recruit, he's a safety, wide receiver. Most schools recruiting him as a safety. I think he's a little bit underrated just because I think all these schools, considering him an elite prospect and really like him a lot. So, that's kind of the news. Had a top 5 the other day, but, it doesn't seem like he's in a major rush to make a decision at this time.
All right, Bone. As I scroll through the questions, be sure and post your questions right now for Andrew Bone, and we'll definitely get to them as we can. And like I said, if we've talked about the prospect, you can rewatch the show. We also have a podcast and plenty of ways to get connected with BamaInsider.com. And as I said earlier in the show, I just dropped some major team nuggets on BamaInsider.com. This is exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. You want to get inside access, now is a perfect time. The promo code is simply Roll Tide. If you're wondering how to get those nuggets, I'm about to show you how. Simply go to BamaInsider.com, type in the promo code, which is Roll Tide, and you can find out right now how to get free 30 days. Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. This is how to get free 30 days on BamaInsider.com. First thing you got to do, go to BamaInsider.com and click on the top banner. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to create an account, email, username, password. The second thing you're going to do is confirm your subscription. Make sure that the promo code is entered right here. It says promo successful, Roll Tide. The third thing you're going to do is enter your credit card information. It has to be valid, and don't worry, you're going to get that 30 days free. As you can see, once you've added a credit card, you're going to get the promo code. As you can see right here, it says $0. After that, you got to make sure and cancel within that 30 days if you don't want to be charged that $9.95. But hopefully, you're happy with all the coverage on BamaInsider.com, so you won't need to cancel. Once you're a premium subscriber of BamaInsider.com, you can access Andrew Bone's recruiting board. You can jump on the Talk of Champions message board and have a great time with thousands of Alabama Crimson Tide football fans. We hope to earn your business at BamaInsider.com. Definitely a great time to join BamaInsider.com. It's been a hot month of recruiting, well, at least in July. And, as Andrew said, things can continue to heat up as we move to that middle part of August. So stay with BamaInsider.com for the latest. You don't have to wait every single Tuesday to get the information. You can get it every day just at BamaInsider.com. Bones answering your questions at 3 a.m. I see him up there at 3 a.m. I'm like, what's he doing? What am I doing up at 3 a.m? So, Andrew, we've started to dive in a little bit, and this is a question coming from me. We've started to dive in a little bit on the class of 2022. Alabama has 16 prospects from the class of 2021, so kind of inching towards that class of 2022. Who are some key targets that Alabama Crimson Tide football fans should know about as they start to turn the page to next year's class?
That's a good question because, we have started doing some features on some, a lot of 2022 recruits. With Alabama having 16 commitments, not a lot of space left in this 2021 class. So, try to focus on those 2021 guys, but you got a much bigger, net that you can go out and see a lot of 2022 guys. I think right now you got to kind of wait and see what happens with this 2021 class before you, really know how many guys you're going to get at, running back. How many guys you're going to get at wide receiver, offensive line. We've had some great features the last couple of days on some, on some really good quarterbacks. Tanner Bailey, who's an in-state quarterback from Gordo High School, grew up an Auburn fan, but has visited Alabama, 20 times, and not just as a recruit, but just going up to campus and going to different games, whether that's a baseball, basketball, football game. Been to Tuscaloosa several times. So just because he's an Auburn legacy and an Auburn guy growing up, I still think Alabama's going to have a chance with him. Ty Simpson, another quarterback that out of Georgia that Alabama really likes, that has mentioned Alabama is one of his top schools early on. So I think next year with, the uncertainty right now at the quarterback position in this 2021 class, I think quarterback's going to be very important in next year's class. Alabama may not get a running back this year. Who's going to be that elite running back in next year's class? Elite, very, very elite running back, one of the top running backs in the country, Jardin out of Texas, somebody that Alabama holds in very high regard. Emmanuel Henderson out of Geneva County here in Alabama. I'm still trying to figure out exactly which position he's going to play at the next level, because he kind of reminds me of Terrion Johnson, who played at Auburn, now with the Detroit Lions coming out of high school. Can do it all. I mean, can play on the defensive side of the ball, can play one running back, can play wide receiver, can play a lot of different things. So I'm interested to see him develop over the course of the next year, kind of figure out, all right, he's definitely going to be a running back, or he's definitely going to be a wide receiver. So those are some of the top guys. And Alabama already has two very outstanding linebacker commitments in this 2021 class, and Robert Woodyard and Jeremiah Alexander, two of the top linebackers in the country for 2022. Excuse me.
Luciano, he's asking about a wild card recruit that Alabama couldn't get to commit or potentially flip. But before we do that, I just wanted to make sure that Luciano sees that we did add him to the upper deck right there. So thank you so much for the contribution. You are definitely now in the Super Chat Hall of Honor. So, Bone, who's kind of a wild card guy in that class of 2021 that Alabama could commit, get to flip? What's your take there?
My wild card is a kid named Christian Zachary, defensive end out of Carrollton, Georgia. Hadn't talked a lot about him over the course of the last 6 months, like we have several other recruits. This is a guy who missed, I think, most of his junior season. I think maybe only played in about 5 games. I think he ended up having still about 6 sacks in those 5 games, and he was certainly a guy who was probably really going to blow up this spring, going on the camp circuit. But has Alabama in his top 5, top 6 right now. Nobody's really talking about him, but he's a kid that I know that Alabama is very high on. If they can, find a spot for him in this class, I think they would certainly welcome him in. But he's a guy that I would keep an eye on over the course of the next few months, if Alabama can find some room and get him in this class, because I think they're very, very high on this kid, Christian Zachary out of Carrollton High School in Georgia.
Good stuff, Bone. Paul's asking on JT Tuimoloau. We recently had a video on him. We've talked a little bit about one of the top prospects from the West Coast. Provide an update for everybody, please, on JT Tuimoloau.
Nothing new from last week. We've reached out to one of his trainers and spoke to him a little bit, and it seems like everything's just kind of wait until the season, take some visits, kind of enjoy the process. I think there was some talk early on that he was going to commit to Ohio State. Did not. Alabama, Oregon, Oklahoma, USC, Ohio State, Michigan, all those schools very much in play for him. But I think he's going to take some visits before making that decision. But a lot of people are talking that it could end up coming down to Ohio State, Oklahoma, Oregon, but I think Alabama continues to climb up that list. And if he can make it to Tuscaloosa sometime this fall, then I think they're going to have a chance, because he was very high in Alabama a couple of years ago, and he camped in Tuscaloosa. Had a great relationship with Tosh LaPoy, no longer at Alabama, but Alabama's trying to rebuild that relationship and see what they can do there. But I think Alabama's got a chance to really impress him if they can get him on campus for a visit.
Thank you so much, Luciano, and thank you for the questions. I think we got a couple more coming in, and definitely wanted to get those out to you. Bone, I'm sorry, but people keep asking about Jason Marshall, so maybe if you could just one more time, because we keep getting questions about him, and rightfully so. I mean, this is a big time prospect, so just kind of provide some people who might have joined the show late, and of course you can rewatch the show, but kind of just give a quick update for people who just joined the show on Jason Marshall, please.
Well, as many people know, this has been considered an Alabama-Florida recruiting battle for months. And, really over the course of the last couple of weeks, we really started to hear a lot about Miami and how has Miami just really entered the race all of a sudden with him when he had a top three of Alabama, Clemson, and Florida. Then he eliminated Clemson and named a top five, and it was Alabama, Florida, Miami, LSU, and Oregon. And all we've heard lately is staying closer to home was kind of a major factor. So it was kind of threw some of us for a loop when he had Oregon in his top five. But I do think that momentum has shifted. Now, I'm not saying that it has shifted completely to Miami, even though the future cast is at 93%. I think as of right now, instead of it being an Alabama-Florida recruiting battle, I do think it's an Alabama-Miami battle. Would not be surprised if he picked the Hurricanes. There was a lot of talk that he was about to commit to Miami on this past Saturday. There was a lot of talk. I mean, it was all over message boards. It was every single recruiting analyst in the country was throwing in their prediction to make sure they nailed it right when he announced on Saturday. And guess what? He did not announce a commitment. And all we've kind of heard since then is maybe Alabama had something to do with that. Maybe they asked him, continued to talk to him and talked him out of making a decision. And, Alabama certainly, very high on his list. I think it's gone back and forth, over and over. But this is going to be an interesting week because he has a teammate, Leonard Taylor, who's going to be announcing his commitment on Thursday. Everybody thinks Leonard Taylor is going to be announcing to Miami, and potentially Jason Marshall announcing the same day. So that's not a fact. That's just a rumor. So let's not go out there and say Jason Marshall is committing on Thursday, because that's just a rumor that we've been hearing. Nothing concrete on that end. But there's a lot of momentum with Miami right now. Two of his teammates are already committed to the Hurricanes, potentially a third commitment from the same school. Does Jason Marshall decide he wants to jump on board with those guys, or does he want to go, to Alabama? We'll have to wait and see. But I think we'll know something here pretty soon on Jason Marshall, one way or the other. I think it's coming down to the wire, and we'll see a decision before the season starts.
All right, Bona, I got another question, and we're going to be here for a few more minutes. So if you want to get your question in, definitely post that right now. While we wait for those questions to come in, I'm going to ask Bona a question myself, and this one is regarding Shemar Turner. I mean, big time prospect, another guy out of the state of Texas. What's kind of the latest with Turner, Bone, and how you feeling about him?
And this is a special kid. Probably somebody that's probably a bit underrated. I think he is. Right at the top of Alabama's wish list in terms of overall targets, defensive targets. I mean, certainly a guy that they really like a lot. 6 foot, 4, 285 pounds. Incredible quickness, strength, power. Got everything you look for in a defensive end. He has a top 5, and Alabama is certainly very high on his list. A lot of people kind of assumed that it was going to be a Texas A&M recruiting battle, but Alabama has, in my opinion, leapfrogged over those two schools. And speaking to Sam Spiegelman, who covers Texas and Louisiana for Rivals, Sam put in a prediction last week for Shemar Turner to Alabama after speaking with him, and I thought that said a lot there. But at the same time, Shemar Turner is not going to be making a decision anytime soon. He wants to wait a while, wants to take some visits. I know he wants to get to LSU and Georgia, two schools that he has yet to visit. He has visited Alabama before, visited Texas A&M. But if he leaves the state of Texas, I think it's going to be for Alabama. And as of right now, predicting Alabama to win his commitment. But I think it's still a long way to go. But guess what? He's got a guy that lives about 10 minutes from him, who's committed to Alabama, and Kendrick Blackshire. So Kendrick's going to be trying to heavily recruit him, until he makes that decision.
Good stuff, Bone. And do what the Dorito Bag says right here. And everyone like and subscribe. Dorito Bag, one of my favorite users on the site. So do what the Dorito Bag says. Doritos. Who doesn't love Doritos? Do what he says and like and subscribe. We appreciate it. Bone, I had cut a couple graphics earlier, and I wanted to pull those up. So on Bama Insider, you can go in and make your fan cast, your future cast, and you compete against guys like Andrew Bone, the best in the business. And this is on the front page of BamaInsider.com. And these are some guys who are right now either trending towards Alabama or people have put in their future cast. So just want to bring up a couple of these guys and make sure we talked about everyone. There's Shemar Turner. We talked about him. Goodwine, Kyrie Jackson. We talked a lot about Jason Marshall, Robbie Outz. Do we need to be talking about Shambre Jackson anymore? I'm not sure why Rivals still has it on our site, but does anybody need to know anything else on Shambre Jackson?
Oh yeah, for sure. Shambre is I think that's only one prediction on Shambre Jackson. I think it's probably Michael Langston from War Chant who made that prediction on him. So I wouldn't look too hard at that. You got to click on the player profile page. See who actually made the prediction. So if it's just one from a team site guy, sometimes that's accurate, but sometimes you need a little bit more people to make those predictions for it to be 100% accurate. But yeah, I think Shambre is certainly a kid that Alabama likes a lot. They would certainly take a commitment from him. I think they felt like he was probably close to committing to Alabama back during the spring. Attended junior day. They really like him a lot. Now, a lot of people do believe he's going to end up going to Florida State, but I think it's an Alabama-Florida State recruiting battle for him. It's crazy how many defensive ends are out there. I mean, we've mentioned Michael Goodwine, Shambre Jackson, Shemar Turner, and then you got the guys like JT Tuimoloau, Tunmise, Adeleye, Corey Foreman. It's just a lot of guys that are out there that seem to have Alabama at least in their top 5, top 6. That they're hoping to get on campus for official visits, and some guys Alabama leads for right now, and some guys they still have a chance with. So we'll see what happens. But hey, before we get to our next question, I do have to give a birthday shout out to my nephew Jack, who turned 9 today. I don't know if Jack's still watching the show. He usually watches the show. I think the first 30 or so minutes. I don't know if he watches the whole show, but Jack, if you're watching the show, happy birthday. Saw the raft that y'all got, or the new float you guys got out on Lake Tuscaloosa, the plane. Love it. Happy birthday. Love you. Keep George and Henry in line, and happy birthday, buddy.
All right. Happy birthday, Jack. We appreciate all your support. I know you're a big fan of BamaInsider.com. So happy birthday, Jack. We'll definitely try to get you some cool gear, something like that. And I'm sure you can get a book signed by your uncle, I would assume. So Jack, happy birthday, buddy. Have a great day, and roll tide to you, buddy. All right, let's see. We got a couple more. Let's see. I had another graphic up here. We talked about that. We talked about most of those guys. So, okay, just want to make sure that we covered our bases. We also got Ronnie saying happy birthday, Jack. So definitely happy birthday. Here was a question. Oh, and do what Justin says. Let's get to 35,000 subscribers right here on the YouTube channel. I mean, I think that's tremendous. And I think that speaks volumes to the fans. I think that speaks volumes to the staff at BamaInsider.com. We're on the verge of 35,000 subscribers. So thank you very much for out there for all the support, especially to our creative content team right here on BamaInsider.com. These guys do a great job. Andrew especially kills it recruiting wise. Tony Sukalis, Tyler Waldrop, all those guys do a fantastic job and make up BamaInsider.com. So everyone's a part of the 35,000 club, and hopefully we can get there here pretty soon. So thank you so much. Tommy's asking, and we're kind of winding down the show, so you have any last-minute questions, definitely get those in. Tommy's asking, any running back news? It's a subtle question, but it's an important one. I mean, Alabama has so many guys right now on this roster that you almost forget about, the guys in the class of 2021. But what's the latest on the running back situation, Bo?
Yeah, as we know, Alabama signed 3 running backs in the 2020 recruiting class. 2 of those guys actually enrolled early, Roydell Williams and Jace McClellan. Kyle Edwards, little later in the year than those 2 guys. Ended up getting there in June, but I think that Alabama really wanted to see those guys during the spring and kind of see what they were able to do to kind of determine if they 100% needed to get another running back in this class. There's not one currently committed. There's a few guys that they're recruiting that they're heavily involved in, but I don't think anybody's really predicting any running backs currently to Alabama. Kamar Wheaton is the guy that Alabama, along with everybody else in the country, is going after. He recently mentioned Alabama's school he talks to on a very, very regular basis, but at the same time, he keeps things pretty quiet. Now, he visited Oklahoma, visited Texas before the recruiting dead period hit, and COVID-19 kind of shut things down for everybody throughout the country. So, that was big for Oklahoma and Texas to get him on campus. It's probably an Oklahoma-Texas recruiting battle for him, but let's see if he makes it to Tuscaloosa before making that decision. A few other guys that are out there, Alton McCaskill, who's also in Texas, got offered a few months ago. Armani Goodwine, who is committed to Auburn. He grew up a big Auburn fan. Don't really see him flipping, but Alabama will at least try to get him on campus for a visit this fall. But this is probably a year where they may not sign a running back unless it's Kamar Wheaton. If they can get Kamar Wheaton on board, they'll be very happy. If they can get, Armani Goodwine on board, they'd be happy. But if they can't get either one of those guys on board or potentially Alton McCaskill, if they really press hard for him, they may not go after anybody and just say, hey, let's get a couple in next year's recruiting class, because there's some really, really good running backs in that 2022 class.
A few more. We got one from Skip coming in. What does 2022 look like from an in-state perspective? I know you talked about the quarterback, a couple other guys. If you could just kind of hit on quickly some guys from 2022 that are from the state of Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good players. And I think 2022 has got a chance to be a really special year. As I mentioned earlier, Alabama has a pair of in-state linebacker commitments already, and Robert Woodyard, Jeremiah Alexander. Curtis Perry, big defensive lineman out of Park Crossing in Montgomery, another big time player. Tanner Bailey, quarterback out of Gordo High School. A couple of Alabama, a couple kids that have brothers who are on the Alabama football team. Caden Story, his brother Christian Story from Lynette High School. Caden, a defensive lineman. And then Riley Quick, Pierce Quick's younger brother, another guy that's got picked up a ton of offers already. Doesn't have one from Alabama just yet, but certainly a very impressive athlete. Can play on the offensive or defensive line.
All right. We got this one's coming in from Ronnie. He's asking for Jalen Milroe an update.
Kind of the same, just trying to, I think Alabama's just trying to get him on campus for an official visit this fall. Still committed to Texas, but, Alabama having a, really good run in the state of Texas and, picking up a couple guys who are Texas legacies, guys who are probably going to be trying to recruit Jalen Milroe, tell him that they'll block for him here in the future. I certainly believe that he will at least listen. May not flip, but he's listening, and I think that Alabama's got a chance to at least bring him on campus for an official visit this fall. But as of right now, I still think he ends up sticking with Texas. But if Alabama can get him on a visit, then they're going to have a really good chance.
Bone talking Alabama Crimson Tide football. I will be back on Wednesday night, which is tomorrow, for a team show. So definitely get your calls in. I'll be taking your calls, and I'd love to talk Alabama Crimson Tide football with you. Plenty to talk about as Alabama moves into the month of August. I really want to give a shout out again to our loyalty club members right here, Touchdown Club on the left, loyalty program on the right. If you're interested to join either of those, see the join button at the bottom of this video. And then also shout out to our super chat Hall of Honor. I mean, how about Tony Hill tonight jumping into the Club 100 head first, right? Just diving in there. We also got the box seats, Randall Williams, Check Your Head. Those guys always taking care of us. Bomb and Paul Robinson certainly moving up. And then shout out to Luciano tonight. Thank you so much for joining. Now is a perfect time to subscribe to BamaInsider.com. You got the recruiting coverage, and then these recruiting nuggets these team nuggets rather that you can't get anywhere else than at BamaInsider.com. Go right now, or they're fresh, August 4th, fresh, ready for you to read. Thank you so much to everybody who joined the show tonight. Happy birthday to Andrew Bones' nephew, Jack. We appreciate all your support. Catch us back at BamaInsider.com. You don't have to wait every single Tuesday. Go to BamaInsider.com and communicate with the staff every single day. Have a beautiful rest of your week. I will catch up with you tomorrow night on Wednesday as we continue to talk Alabama Crimson Tide football right here on BamaInsider.com. From beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Andrew Bone, Kyle Henderson. We'll catch you soon. BamaInsider.com.